Alrighty, Roger. We got a recorder rolling now. So, of course, the American Farm Bureau Federation and John Deere have signed a memorandum of understanding today, doing with a variety of different right to repair concerns for various farmers and ranchers. Just kind of give us your reaction from kind of that legal perspective of just your reaction to sort of this agreement.
Well, my reaction is that we've seen this before. John Deere signed a similar memorandum of understanding in 2018 with the California Farm Bureau. And that was done at the time when the California legislature was on the verge of passing a right to repair bill. And their strategy actually worked then because the California bill lost momentum. It failed on the last vote. And then John Deere didn't honor the memorandum of understanding. So, there's a trust factor that's here because this one does state that if American Farm Bureau does participate in lobbying and is successful in promoting, supporting, lobbying, or in effect even getting state right to repair legislation that imposes obligations beyond the commitments in the memorandum of understanding, then all deals are off. The memorandum is no good at that point because John Deere reserves the right upon 15 days notice to withdraw from it if that happens. So we've seen this play before, and John Deere used it to stymie right to repair legislation in California. I wonder if that is kind of behind the scenes as to what's going on here, because there's an attempt at the federal level that focuses on right to repair at the Federal Trade Commission.
Sure, and you mentioned that legislation. What is that legislation kind of targeting and trying to do when it comes to right to repair right now?
Well, this has certainly gained the attention of the White House and legislative bodies, not only in the United States but around the globe. It's the memorandum, I would say, is the first of its kind initiative that will probably set the stage for others to come. But in the last 2 years, federal right to repair legislation has been proposed in both the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate. Several times. We had the H.R. 4006 was the Fair Repair Act. That was introduced in June of 2021. And then we had a Senate bill, that was 3830, the Fair Repair Act of 2022, which came down in March of 2022. And we've had at least, at my count, at least 27 states that have considered or are considering right to repair legislation. And in fact, June of last year, New York passed the first right to repair legislation directed at electronic devices, and that one requires electronic makers to provide repair information and parts and tools and software and components to consumers and independent repair shops. So it's kind of a hot topic that's out there, and of course with all of the, you think of relatively new farm machinery, you've got to have the technology. You have to have access to the technology as a farmer to be able to repair it on your own, or you're left at the control of the dealer who's got all of that technology. So it's a very important issue for agriculture.
Sure, and obviously, you mentioned some of the other aspects of this right to repair act or right to repair different areas. Obviously, it's more than just agriculture. I mean, how do you see kind of an agreement like this kind of having an impact on the overall right to repair argument right now?
Yeah, well, that's what the Congress has been focused on. I think the legislation that I referenced in both the House and the Senate is not specific to agriculture. It's a broad brush right to repair legislation with respect to all type of electronic devices and computer systems and so forth. But with all of the technology in agriculture and the food production system really largely dependent on the use of equipment that is highly technical, this repairability by a farmer themselves is very important to retain the ability to fix your own equipment. So it's going to continue to be a hot button issue in 2023 in ag law circles.
Sure, and I know there is also quite a bit of actual case law still going on right now with this. I mean, are there any kind of pieces sticking out at the moment when it comes to the actual case law right now going on with right to repair in the courts at the moment?
Well, you're right, we do have some cases working their way through the system. We don't have any really good, solid opinions out on right to repair yet. We have, some lower-level court opinions here and there. We have some settlements of cases that don't get published, those types of things. But I would anticipate in 2023 we could see a major decision at an upper level court case, perhaps even at the federal level.
Right, maybe just kind of remind us real quick, why this has kind of become a really big deal with agriculture, and obviously, with John Deere specifically, who I believe is within the majority of those lawsuits as well. Just kind of remind us why they're kind of the center of this argument at the moment in agriculture.
Well, for several years, this right to repair movement has been at odds with many manufacturers of products. And again, it's not just ag, it's medical devices and motor vehicles as well as agricultural equipment, because that equipment and the machinery contains embedded software and telematics that's used for remote diagnosis and repair. And so the advocates of right to repair are seeking access to the manufacturer's diagnostic and repair software and all of that telematic data, notwithstanding the manufacturer's claims that the access jeopardizes their intellectual property rights. So we've got a rub here between, what am I buying when I buy a piece of equipment? Am I buying the full piece of equipment or just a license to use it, subject to the company retaining their intellectual property rights? And so that's the interesting connection in the law, that the law has to kind of breach those two and maybe provide a bridge from one to the other. The difference between intellectual property rights on one hand and what I'm buying when I buy that equipment, am I getting with that purchase the right to repair somebody else's intellectual property? It's a really thorny legal question, and I expect to see developments on this in 23.
Certainly, and one final question for you, Roger. When it comes to the actual agreement that was made between the American Farm Bureau Federation and John Deere, I mean, you mentioned the trust factor that's there, but what are the proposed benefits for farmers and right to repair advocates when it comes to that agreement itself?
Well, the big benefit, of course, concern to farmers is if their equipment goes down during harvest, they want to be able to fix it right there. The time delay, if you're working in an isolated rural environment, and now you've got a machine that's going to require a dealer for a manufacturer to apply their diagnostics to it, whether that's on a remote basis or not. They can tell from a remote situation that there's a problem, but then fixing it and getting somebody to actually take care of it, the time factor is critical for farmers. It's not like on older equipment where you could just fix, if something broke down in the field, you could fix it right there. You could go to town, get parts. Maybe you had parts on a shelf in a barn, fix it, take care of it, and keep moving. And so I think the big concern here is for farmers. They want the agreement to be able to facilitate their ability to fix something on the spot. They want to have access to those diagnostics so that they can take care of it themselves when the need arises.
Sure. Well, Roger, I think that's about all I got for you on that one. Is there anything else you'd like to add at this time?
No, I think that's it. I just anticipate that this will continue to be in the news through 2023.